All right, guys, we're back. So what we're going to do in this video is begin making our very first web page. Okay, and over the next few assignments, we're gonna start off with a small web page, and we're gonna add more and more to it, so it becomes like a full-blown website. And so we're going to learn just the absolute basics today to get something on the screen, you know, something that kind of looks like a web page or a website. And the language that we have to learn to create websites, it's called HTML. HTML. So we're going to talk about what that means and what that is and so on and so forth in this video. So to help us along with HTML, the language of web pages, what I want you to do is head over to Google or Yahoo or Bing or whatever search engine that you like and type in HTML tutorial. Now let me zoom in here. If you type in HTML tutorial, the first one that comes up is going to be likely this W3C schools link, so go ahead and click on that and we go to this website here. Now this website frankly is awesome. It's incredible. Okay, W3 is the consortium. It's this group of really smart people who manage all of these standards on the web. So HTML, of course, is part of that standard, and so we're going to use the W3 website to help us learn HTML so we can make web pages. By the way, as a random side note for you, W3 has tons of other tutorials. It has, for example, PHP and XML and SQL. And if you've maybe heard of some of these acronyms before, then fantastic. But if you haven't, we don't really care for this class. Okay, so let me give you some idea of what's going on here. First off, you know, we all know what a web page is. Like, for example, you know, if I go to Google. Okay, this is a web page. I'm looking at the Google web page right now, and you know, if I go to Amazon, this is the Amazon web page, right? Notice that web pages have a lot of cool stuff on them. They have pictures and they have really nice text and colors and so on and so forth. And so we're going to learn how to make like a watered down, a basic version of these kind of professional looking websites here. So here's the idea. Okay, let me pull up Paint. I want you to start thinking in terms of what's called client and server. Client, server. A client, it's just a computer. A server, it's also just a computer. And a client is your computer. Okay, it's the one that you are sitting in front of right now. That is your computer. You can, I want to mark it as A here. You can do anything on your computer. You can you know, go to Amazon and buy something. You can watch a YouTube video. You can read news and so on and so forth. This is your personal computer. You can go online and do stuff. The server, on the other hand, it's also a computer, but the job of the server is to send you the web pages. So here's kind of a really simplified view of how that works. Let's say I open up Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox or whatever web browser that you like to use, and let's say I type in google.com and I hit enter. What happens is the client, you know, computer A here, your computer, is going to send a message to this server. Okay, it's going to send a message, and this message, it's going to say, give me this page. Give me this page. So I type in google.com. It's going to go to the google.com server, and it's going to say, hey, give me that first main kind of landing page that it is so famous. You know, I'm talking about this one right here. This is Google's landing page, as it's called. And so our client, our computer A, it says, hey, give me this page. And the server says, okay, well, let me see if I can find that page. And if I can find it, I'll send it back to you. And so if the server finds it, if computer B finds it, it's going to send back whatever page that you requested. Here, this says the page, you know, the page. And so this goes on a lot. You know, if I'm on Google and I type in google.com and, you know, it sends me this page back, I can click on other links and I can go to other places. Like, for example, you know, if I go to Amazon, that interaction, it just happened just now. It sent a message to Amazon. It said, hey, give me the main landing page of Amazon, and the server sent it back. If then I go on here and then I click on something, like I click on our textbook, Technology in Action, this interaction happened again. It said, give me this other page. Give me the Technology in Action page, you know? And the server's like, well, do I have it over here? Let me see if I have it. Oh, I found it. And I'm going to give it back to this client. And this kind of back and forth client-server action, right? This is what's going on when you're interacting with a web page. It just goes back and forth and back and forth. It's called the client-server model. That's what it's called, okay? Client-server model. So I guess, how can I notate that? Client-server model. And it's kind of famous in computing. It's kind of like your classical model of computer networking. There are other models of networking. There's like peer-to-peer, for example, but we're going to talk about that in the future. Anyhow, web pages, interactions, it's all based on the client-server model. And now, let's talk about this thing here some more. Let me box it. The page. Now, what the server sends back is a web page, and more specifically, what the server sends back is an HTML page, a page that is written in HTML. Like, you know, I could write a book in English, I could write a book in Spanish, I could write a book in German. Well, this particular computer speaks HTML, and so the server is going to send back this page. It's going to be encoded in HTML. When the HTML goes from B back to A, the client, which is your computer, your web browser, you know, Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, is going to say, hey, I speak HTML too. So I'm gonna take this HTML and I'm gonna draw cool pictures on the screen, and I'm gonna put colors on there, and I'm gonna make this really nice looking web page like we see right here. And so we are going to write HTML. We're going to make it so let me go back to my picture here. We fully understand this thing that's going on right there, the page. And when we write HTML, we can view it on our own computer. And the really cool thing about learning HTML is that we don't even need a client and a server. You know, at the very beginning, we're going to need it later, but at the very beginning, we don't even need a client and server. We can just write the HTML and view the result. Okay. So let's do that. Let's learn HTML. Let me go back here. Okay. So we are here at the W3 Schools website. We got here by typing in HTML tutorial and clicking on the first link. And so we're going to go over, let me see here, I have 4 sections that I want to go over today. We're going to check out HTML headings first. HTML headings. Okay. Now, let me zoom in. So, there's like this basic template for HTML that you kind of start off with, and then you can type in the rest of your HTML to make pretty pictures and formatting and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and look at our first thing called a tag. Now this is HTML headings, and in HTML, every instruction, every kind of word in this weird language that is called HTML is going to be surrounded by less than and curly than, less than and greater than brackets. There's also curly brackets, but that's a whole different story. Less than and greater than brackets. Okay. And so what happens is, if you type in less than, greater than, and then in between it you type in H1, which is short for heading 1, then that means that everything after this kind of weird symbol here, less than, H1, greater than, is going to be big. It's going to be a large heading. Like, for example, this thing here is a heading. It's kind of larger text than this guy. So let's click on Try It Yourself. Click on Try It Yourself. And we're going to examine some of the different headings. Let me zoom in. Now I want you to focus on this guy right here. I don't care about the rest of it. Just look at this guy. This says less than, H1 greater than. This is heading 1. And so when I type in this part, that's going to produce the text that is over here. This is heading 1. Notice how big it is. Heading 1 is the largest heading you can possibly have, so it kind of makes sense that it's going to make large text, right? If you want the text to stop being large, you want to go back to normal size, you can type in, less than slash. This is now forward slash H1 and then a greater than symbol. This is called a closing tag, and you can tell it's a closing tag because there has a slash in there. It's a forward slash. It's right next to, it's your question mark key on your keyboard. And so this is the open tag, and this is the closing tag. Okay, open and close. You know that it's a closing tag if there's a slash there, and you know if it's an opening tag if there's just not a slash there. And so, okay, so let's kind of recap. We know that there's this language called HTML, and HTML is used to create web pages. Every word in this language, HTML, it's surrounded by less than and greater than symbols. And the first word that we know about in this language is called H1. And H1, its sole purpose in life is to give you a really big heading. And so we can begin the large heading, and we can now end the large heading. Let's make a little change here. I want you to highlight, this is heading 1, and type in your own name. Okay. Michael Wagner, hello world. I type that in, and I click on Submit Code. Notice that the text on the right, the web page that I'm viewing right now, it says Michael Wagner Hello World in really big text. Okay, cool, very nice. So there's a whole family of heading tags. There's H1 down to H6. Now H1 is the largest, H6 is going to be the smallest, and everything else in between is kind of like just in between. There is no H7, there's no H10. It stops at H6 for whatever reason. I guess the designers felt that it would be too small otherwise. And so, you can see all these things. Right here we have H4, for example. H4 is going to be this guy, right? And we can change that text if we want to. Some text is here. And notice that this label now changes around. All right? So cool. We type in the less than, greater than symbols. We type in the HTML code, as it's called, in between that, and we close our tag properly. Okay, we'll talk about this later on. Okay, well, I just want you to focus on kind of these pieces right here. We have heading in our arsenal now. We now understand heading. Okay, so very cool. Play around with this. I mean, you can even like move things around. This is a little cut and paste. You could even delete things. And again, you can change the text. Then we have our result here on the right hand side. Now the left hand side, this is HTML. We're programming in HTML right now. On the right hand side, it's the result. It's what your customers, your users would actually view, right? The server sends back this HTML, and the client interprets it. It reads the HTML and then displays this nice, lovely looking output here. Okay. Notice what happens if we don't have any tags at all. It just says, it's just like normal text, It's not large, it's not small or anything. It's just kind of normal default text. Okay, cool. So that's going to be a heading. All right. Now, actually, I guess I will go ahead and talk about these other pieces right here. Now, let me erase this, and let's talk about these other pieces. Now, there are lots of types of files that are in computers. There's picture files, and there's audio files, and there's video files, and there's text, and there's all kinds of other stuff too, right? We are dealing with HTML files. And so what happens is, in computing, a computer program will read a file, it'll open up the file, and it'll kind of like look at the file and try to figure out what it is. And so we have this very first line here that says less than, greater than, and then exclamation point doc type HTML. This really weird looking line, it tells the computer program that's reading our HTML that this is HTML, this is a web page. So like interpret it as a web page and display it as a web page. You know, it just kind of tells the other computer, the other program, that this is a web page. Again, there's other types. There's like pictures, there's videos, all right? You know, even on pictures, there's like certain types of pictures. There's JPG pictures and GIF pictures and all kinds of other random acronyms. And so in those cases, you wouldn't have doc type HTML, you'd have other stuff. Okay, now, all of your HTML documents are going to begin with this. On every single example, on every single assignment, you should type these things in to have complete code. Then we have this tag here. Open HTML and close HTML. All of your HTML code, or tags if you want to call them that, go in between the open HTML and the close HTML. Things like your headings and whatever else. Then we have body. Okay. Now all the stuff that the user sees on the screen goes in between body. There's also one called head, but we're not going to talk about that for a little while. Okay. All the stuff that goes in between body you see on the screen. All the stuff that goes in between head, you don't see it on the screen. And that sounds kind of weird, but we'll talk about that later on. Okay. So I want you to think of this as like your bare bones skeleton starting point. You know, every single document you make is going to have this at a minimum. And then you're going to add more and more stuff inside of this body region that we have in between open and close body. Okay, cool. Let's keep learning. Let me go back to the headings section. Let's go down here. So we're talking about headings, HTML headings for headings only. I think it's pretty obvious. We have H1 are for the main headings, H2, H3, they get smaller, smaller, and they go, of course, all the way down until H6. Next tag I want to talk about here. We actually have two of them. Here we have the paragraph tag, the paragraph code or instruction, if you want to call it that. And then we also have the HR tag. Let's figure out what these things do. Alright. So what do we have here? We have our skeleton, right? Our basics, our kind of setup stuff. We have this doc type, we have HTML, we have body. And at the bottom we have this close body and close HTML. Remember that this is kind of just your basic starting point, and you put everything that you see on the screen in between that open and close body. So all the stuff that you see on the screen, it's right here, right? Here we have the HR tag defines a horizontal rule. Ugh, what the heck does that mean? Well, what that means is if you type in less than, HR, greater than, it produces the line that you see on the right hand side here. Like there's three lines.